Hey guys, it's Jonathan Gibson and welcome back to the third part in a multi-part series for the Certified Ethical Hacker course. Today we'll be covering scanning methodology and TCP and UDP communications. So last video we spoke about the tools used for passive and active reconnaissance. Once we get the information that we're looking for, it's time to take it a step further by scanning for live hosts and enumerating usernames and passwords. So just like penetration testing methodology, there is also one for scanning. So the scanning methodology goes as follows. You want to check for live systems first by doing a ping sweep. Essentially, you'll be poking for computers or servers and seeing who says ouch. Then you'll be checking for open ports. So once you've found some computers or servers online, you want to see if they have any open ports, and then you can plan your attack accordingly. You will be then wanting to be scanning beyond the IDS, or IPS. Now, evading IDS systems can easily be done by spoofing your IP address using proxy servers, or compromised machines or servers to launch your attacks. There is also a method called fragmented IP packets, which is also a great way of getting around most IDS sensors, because using fragmented packets basically takes up a large amount of CPU and memory usage at a network sensor level, allowing you to bypass many scanners. Performing banner grabbing. So also known as OS fingerprinting, banner grabbing is a method to determine the operating system running on the remote target system. Banner grabbing has an active and a passive way of gaining information. The main difference between active and passive is active banner grabbing relies on scanning the target, while passive relies on capturing packets from sniffing the network and then using it to reveal the OS. You can also scan for vulnerabilities. So now that we've found some online computers, we know what operating system that they're running, and we've even tricked the IDS into allowing our scans further into the network, we'll now turn to the fun part. We need to find out what vulnerabilities lie on the network. Vulnerability scanning identifies weaknesses of the system or our network in order to help us make a more sound decision on how the system should be exploited. After a while, you'll probably be able to tell what vulnerabilities a network most likely has by a simple network scan and a banner grab, but even then, using tools to automate the process of finding potential flaws is an important part of the scanning methodology. Keep in mind that vulnerability scanners aren't 100% accurate, and that only exploitation of said vulnerability makes it a true threat. You'll then want to make a diagram of the network. So we know what lives on the network, we know what operating systems are in use, and we have a handful of possible vulnerabilities. Now comes the time that we lay out the topology, or the architecture of the target network. Doing this will save time and help when trying to navigate the network of larger corporations. It also helps with knowing when you'll come up against another firewall or an IPS or an IDS, and what paths you'll probably want to avoid on the network. Then setting up proxies. So we talked a bit about setting up proxy servers for the use of evading IDSs. Using a proxy, which is basically just a network computer that serves as a middleman for connecting to other computers, can help mask and anonymize you to some extent. This works by having the proxy server send your TCP and UDP requests for you. So when you ask to access a website or a server behind a proxy, your request gets sent from you to the proxy, and then the proxy makes the connection to the server or the website and then sends it back to you. Now, proxies can also be used in a positive way, allowing internal computers in a company not to reveal their real IP address when connecting to outside sources. But in this case, we're actually just trying to mask our IP. Now, if you've ever taken a network course, or if you're a network admin, then you already know what TCP and UDP is. For those who are just learning, you can simplify it by saying TCP and UDP is how traffic flows across the network. They are both types of what we call the Internet Protocol, or IP for short. Now, while both have some things in common, the difference is what makes them popular for different usages. Both TCP and UDP are used for sending bits of data, known as packets, over the Internet. So no matter what you're using, your data will be sent to an IP address. And the packets that are sent are generally treated in the same way. Now, how do they actually work? So TCP, which stands for Transmission Control Protocol, is one of the most commonly used protocols on the internet. What makes TCP one of the most used protocols is the way that it sends packets. See, with TCP, you are guaranteed that the recipient will receive the packets by sending the packets and waiting for a response saying that the receiver got them, and if not, then if no response comes back, then the TCP will just resend the packets to ensure that the recipient has received them. And this will continue until the recipient does receive them. On the other hand, UDP, standing for User Datagram Protocol, works similar to TCP in all aspects except for one. It doesn't do error checking, which means that if you somehow drop some packets along the way, you will not receive them. A good example of UDP usage is video games. When we experience lag in video games, it's due to the UDP packets not reaching our network. Thus, in-game, you'll seem to be teleporting, or the game will freeze, and the next thing you know, your character is dead. Because UDP is sending a constant stream of information at high speed, it has no time to check if the information it's sending is being received properly or even at all. So TCP and UDP are both forms of communications used by the Internet Protocol IP. They both serve the same purpose, transporting information across the internet, but they do it in different ways. In our next video, we'll actually be covering enumeration and different scanning types, and the tools that are used. So, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button and subscribe. Feedback is always welcome, and if you want to support me, please check out my Patreon page, as well as other social media links in the description below, and definitely check out my company, Coda Ops. Come join us on the forums, and remember guys, keep hacking the Gibson.